gonna act like that. Say you will be my lady. Feeling so ashamed. There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do for you. Try to leave, something keeps pulling me back.
How you gonna act like that? That's the question Tyrese asked the world back in 2002, and it became one of the biggest R&B hits of the decade. But here's the question nobody's asking now. How's the world gonna act when the man who sang about loyalty ends up at the center of a police raid with his ride-or-die grandmother getting detained right alongside him? September 22nd, 2025, Los Angeles. Body cameras rolling. Officers storming through a mansion in connection with killer dogs. And right there in the middle of it all, the grandmother who raised him when his parents couldn't. The same woman who was his real ride or die long before he ever sang about it. She didn't just ride with him to success, she rode with him straight into police custody. But that's just where the story gets wild. Because while the world was busy making memes about a raid, they missed the real story. How the man with one of the smoothest voices in R&B got abandoned by record labels because his TikTok numbers weren't high enough. How he formed a supergroup with two other R&B legends and watched the industry ignore them anyway. How he had a complete mental breakdown caught on camera that went viral for all the wrong reasons. How his ex-wife took him to court demanding $20,000 a month and called him a poor businessman. How his alcoholic mother died on Valentine's Day and he used that pain to create what he calls the most important R&B album in decades. This isn't about Roman Pierce from Fast and Furious.
Hey man, which one of these things is $1? He said something about.
This isn't about Jody from Baby Boy.
And don't think 1 second I'm gonna let you get all up in her head and get her to kick me out like the last did my brother.
This is about the voice that made you fall in love with Sweet Lady.
Say you will be my lady.
The same voice that asked, how you gonna act like that? When relationships go wrong. The same voice that's now asking the music industry, how you gonna act like real singing doesn't matter anymore? Yeah, we're gonna talk about those dogs and that grandmother getting detained, but first, you need to understand how a kid from Watts with a ride-or-die grandmother became R&B royalty, lost everything, and is now fighting to save soul music from auto-tune and algorithms. Because when you really look at Tyrese's story, you realize his grandmother wasn't just ride-or-die for him, he's been ride-or-die for R&B his entire career, even when the industry tried to leave him on the side of the road. Buckle up. This story goes way deeper than you think. December 30th, 1978. Watts, Los Angeles. Tyrese Darnell Gibson enters the world in one of America's toughest neighborhoods. But before we get to the platinum records, the hit songs, and the sold-out arenas, you need to understand who his real ride or die was from day one. His mother was an alcoholic for 27 years, full-blown addiction. His father, crack cocaine and alcohol. So who stepped up when his parents couldn't? His grandmother. She became his everything, his parent, his protector, his foundation. She was riding with him long before the fame, long before the money, long before any of it.
The soundtrack that helped her to drink even more was R&B soul music.
And here's what shaped his entire musical soul. While his mother was drinking her way through life, she had a soundtrack playing in the background. Not the radio hits of that era, the classics. Marvin Gaye, Donny Hathaway, Teddy Pendergrass, Stevie Wonder, Luther Vandross. Young Tyrese didn't know he could sing yet. He was just a kid watching his mother use R&B as therapy, as escape, as the only thing that made sense in chaos. Every song about love and heartbreak and pain was being programmed into his DNA. That's not musical influence. That's survival education. And then one day, Tyrese discovered he had the gift. Not just any voice, but the kind that could make you stop everything and listen. The kind that carried real emotion, real pain, real soul. In 1998, at just 19 years old, Tyrese released Sweet Lady, and the world stopped. The song shot to #1 on Billboard's R&B charts. The radio couldn't stop playing it. Women went absolutely crazy. Overnight, a kid from Watts with nothing but talent and his grandmother's support became R&B's newest superstar. But that was just the beginning. In 2002, he released a song that would define a generation's relationship problems, You know the one, the track that had every woman nodding their head, thinking about that one dude who messed up. The song that perfectly captured the frustration of dealing with someone who changes up on you. That song became massive. It was everywhere. Weddings played it during the drama moments. Radio stations put it on repeat. It became the anthem for anyone who'd ever been betrayed. Anyone who'd watched someone they loved turn into someone they didn't recognize. Success in the music industry comes with strings attached. Heavy ones. The labels wanted to control his image, his sound, his entire brand. They wanted another manufactured pop star. Tyrese wanted to be a real artist. Yeah, movies happened. Fast and Furious made him an international action star.
He's off the hook. Open the garage together. Garage.
Transformers put him in billion-dollar franchises.
You've been talking about barbecue gators and crickets for the last 2 weeks. I'm never going to your mama's house, Fig. I promise.
But Bobby,
I'm not going to your mama's.
Baby Boy made him a cultural icon.
So it's cool now? When it was on me, it was World War III. So since Mr. Melvin fessed up to it, it's all good now?
But those were never the main mission. The voice was always the priority. The music was always home. By 2013, Tyrese was watching the music industry change in ways that terrified him. Auto-tune was taking over. Real singing was disappearing. So he did something bold. He joined forces with two other R&B legends, Genuine and Tank, to form a supergroup called TGT. Think about it. 3 powerhouse vocalists, 3 men who could actually sing without technology fixing their voices, 3 artists who understood what real R&B was supposed to sound like. They released 3 Kings in 2013. And it should have been massive. It should have reminded the world what real R&B sounded like. But you know what happened? The industry barely paid attention. Despite the talent, despite the vocals, despite everything they brought to the table, TGT couldn't compete with the new wave of artists who had viral moments but couldn't hold a note. The radio didn't push it hard enough. Labels didn't invest the way they should have. And the supergroup that should have saved R&B became another example of the industry choosing popularity over talent. That hurt Tyrese deeply. Because if 3 R&B legends coming together couldn't make the industry care, what would it take?
You executives that are lucky to still have a job after you didn't work for 15 goddamn record labels.
For over 2 years after that, from 2022 to 2024, Tyrese was completely without a record deal. No label, no backing, nothing. Labels looked at his streaming data, his social media metrics, and basically said, pass. The same man who made Sweet Lady, who asked, how you gonna act like that? And who formed TGT with 2 other legends, couldn't get a deal because his TikTok engagement wasn't high enough. Let that sink in. Meanwhile, labels were throwing millions at artists who couldn't sing without auto-tune, but had viral dance challenges. Tyrese was furious. Not bitter, not jealous, just frustrated that the industry had completely lost its mind. He's 45 years old, with a voice that still sounds incredible live. He sells out arenas. He makes $200,000 a night performing, but because some teenager with purple hair has more followers, he can't get respect? Now, tell me, how's that fair? He'll tell you directly. He's making grown music for grown people. Music that helps couples reconnect. Music that makes babies. Music that comes from the soul, not from software. If you're 16 years old, uploading TikToks in his audience, security's removing you. Not because he hates youth, because he's creating art for adults who understand real music. But creating that art required him to live through the kind of pain that breaks most people. In 2017, Tyrese married Samantha Lee. Beautiful ceremony, perfect photos. Love looked real. By 2020, she filed for divorce with the mans that made headlines. $20,000 a month in child support for their 8-month-old daughter. Yes, $20,000. Let that sink in.
I can't unsee what I saw and I can't unfeel what I feel. So at the end of the day, I'm now in a studio working on an album.
When those papers arrived with that number, everything clicked. This wasn't about love or family or working things out. This was business. Samantha later called him a poor businessman questioning his financial decisions and career moves publicly. The divorce got real ugly fast, but Tyrese did what artists do. He channeled that pain straight into the studio. Then came March 2021. A video surfaced that Tyrese never knew existed. In it, he's crying uncontrollably, asking, "What more do you want from me?" over and over. The internet destroyed him. Memes, jokes, complete mockery. It was so sad.
No, I don't need no tissue. Black men cry. There is no square footage I could ever live in.
What people didn't know, he'd been prescribed psychiatric medication for the divorce stress. The side effects were brutal. For 4 months, that video circulated before he even knew it existed. The shame was crushing. But Tyrese didn't hide. He talked about taking Ativan for anxiety. He talked about therapy, about massages, about needing quiet spaces to reset. He made it clear, Black men cry, Black men struggle. There's no shame in it.
Anxiety medicine, that's 1 milligram. It's called Ativan, changed my life. I've never taken any other version of anxiety medicine. Most of y'all I had taken.
During his darkest time, Zelie entered his life. She became his rescue, loving him through the chaos when he couldn't love himself. All of that pain went into his music.
Because she was my rescue. God sent this woman in my life in the midst of all of my messes.
His mother died in 2022 on Valentine's Day. The woman who introduced him to Marvin and Teddy while drinking through her addiction was gone. Tyrese was 43, successful, wealthy, and cried like a child.
She dies on Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow.
Okay, 2 girls, 2 boys. I'm the last one. I'm the baby boy, officially.
From that grief came Wildflower, a tribute to his mother. David Foster, the legendary producer who co-wrote the original song 50 years ago, came out of retirement to produce it. This man has worked with Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, everyone, and he chose Tyrese for this moment.
It's a short film called Wildflower, dedicated to my mother.
Tyrese didn't make a music video. He made a short film. Full beard grown through a 5-hour process. Bell bottoms, platform shoes, full 1968 fashion. He lived in that era for 4 years, creating this album. When he showed up to sing the national anthem at SoFi Stadium in that full beard and red beanie, people thought he was having another breakdown. They didn't understand he was honoring Marvin Gaye, who sang at the Great Western Forum on the exact same property decades earlier.
When I was singing the national anthem and landed,
people laughed. The internet made jokes. But Tyrese was paying tribute to his mother, to Marvin, to the era when R&B actually mattered. That's what Beautiful Pain represents. 20 songs, all live instruments, 0 auto-tune, features from Lenny Kravitz, Kenny G, and real musicians who understand soul music.
has helped me to discover the beauty in my pain.
Wow, okay.
That's why the album is called Beautiful Pain.
For 2 years, no label will touch him. Then finally, in 2024, he signed a $3 million deal with CMG as a full joint venture partnership. Not just distribution, real partnership where he's signing artists and building Voltron Records.
Over 2 years, and I just signed my deal, and the deal was for $3 million.
He promised R&B he'd bring live music back. His producer fought him on it. But Tyrese insisted because his biggest hit, Shame, was recorded live and stayed #1 for 16 weeks. But while fighting for R&B's soul, his finances were crumbling. In 2019, he appeared on The Masked Singer because he desperately needed the money.
I needed that money from that show so bad.
He thanks God for that mask because it hid how broken he was inside. That's the raw truth from someone who's been homeless 3 times. Someone who tell you most of his jewelry is fake, $23 from Amazon. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's trying to survive.
This bracelet right here look real as a mother. $23 on Amazon.
Which brings us back to September 22nd, 2025, and the raid. Police executed a search warrant at his home over his cane Corsos. Powerful guard dogs allegedly involved in serious incidents. Officers searched his property with cameras rolling. And his grandmother, his original ride or die, the woman who raised him when his parents were too addicted to function, was detained during that raid. How you gonna act like that, world? How you gonna sit there and judge a man for having dogs that got aggressive while ignoring that his grandmother, the woman who saved his life as a child, is now caught up in his adult problems? How you gonna mock his mental health but stream his music? How you gonna say he's not relevant but sell out his shows? How you gonna ignore TGT when three legends came together?
But to be honest with you, man, I don't really have the bandwidth to take on no 3 or 4 people.
Here's what people don't understand. When female artists release songs about heartbreak and divorce, nobody questions them. Mary J. Blige, Jasmine Sullivan, they can express their pain. But when Tyrese does it, people say he wants his ex back. He's not making music to win anyone back. He's making it because Marvin Gaye did the same thing with Here My Dear after his divorce. Artists process pain through art.
Everything imaginable in his life and end up going to court and didn't have anything that he can give Berry Gordy's sister.
His faith keeps him alive. Without Jesus Christ, he wouldn't be here. When everything crashed, God said, I got my hands on you, son.
The Lord Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Every therapist that's ever helped me.
In 2025, Tyrese Gibson is still here, still singing with that voice that made Sweet Lady a classic and asked, how you gonna act like that when love goes wrong? Beautiful Pain is available now with signed vinyl on his website because real music deserves to be physical.
All the many days you on my mind.
He's 46 now, making a promise with a net worth of around $4 and $6 million and 2 beautiful daughters. In 50 years, people will understand this was when R&B needed saving, and Tyrese refused to let it die. When TGT couldn't save it, he decided he'd do it alone if he had to. You don't have to like him, but you can't deny the voice. While everyone chased TikTok fame, Tyrese was in the studio with real musicians making music designed to last forever. For a kid from Watts, whose grandmother was his real ride or die long before it was a phrase in songs, who's been homeless 3 times, who formed a supergroup that the industry ignored, who lost everything and built it back. That's the miracle. He's still here, still singing, still believing real R&B will win. His grandmother rode with him from Watts to the police raid. And Tyrese, he's writing for R&B until his last breath. That's Tyrese Gibson, the voice, the rebel, the man asking the industry, how you gonna act like real music doesn't matter?